Good day, Minecraftians. Purple Mentite here, bringing you episode 45 of my Agrarian Skies Hardcore Quest Let's Play. This game pack by Jadedcat is available on the Feed the Beast launcher. Last time, I completed some quests and set up some automated quests. Let's go take a look at how those are doing. First off, we have Not the End, which is 53% complete and counting. And we have Biofuel, Fueling the Void, which is 18% complete and counting. I decided that patience was not my primary virtue, and set up 2 more bioreactors with the same general setup of 9 plant-based items being fed in and transmitted into biofuel. Transmuted? Fermented? I'm really not 100% certain how this thing is supposed to process. In any case, today we're going to cover Apprentice Apiculture. That is, more bees. I've been letting the bees run and slowly collecting honeycombs so that I'd have some honey drops to be able to use for this episode, because I have a feeling that I might need some of them. Let's see where we are on the trees and bees quests. We've completed analyzing the results, cultivating bees, luring the bees, and beekeeping. Next, I have a couple of side quests. I can get into genetic manipulation 2 from extra bees. I can get into alvearies from forestry. That'll be an easy one to complete. And I can get into bee automation from GenDustry. And this is going to be the primary path of bees on this particular playthrough, because it makes life an awful lot easier. However, because I'm dedicated to completing every single quest available, let's get the side quests out of the way before we tackle the main path. Now, for the alvearies, I received an awful lot of alveary blocks from questing. But these came out of a random reward bag, so I'm not going to use these without showing you how to make your own. To make an alveary, you need to put down a bunch of these alveary blocks, as well as some panels on top. And they are slabs. They need to be wooden slabs. And it could be any type. I'll grab enough to build one alveary and show you what I'm talking about. You need to build the multi-block structure in a 3x3x3. And on top of it, you need to place your slabs to form kind of a roof. And it can be any vanilla or forestry wood, and then it will assemble into the multi-block alveary, which, if you look inside, appears to be exactly like the apiary. The difference is in the math. When using an alveary, you'll get much more production than you will with a standard apiary, even when upgraded with frames. The alveary is considered the baseline production value. The apiary on its own produces 10% of what an alveary does, and each frame inside of an apiary increases that production by 20%. So even with all 3 frames, this apiary can only produce 70% of what the alveary can. The problem is that the alvearies are rather difficult to build. You need to get quite a ways into bee breeding before you're able to actually create them. I would not be able to make an alveary at this point in time, were it not for the fact that I was given them by a quest. So let's take a look at exactly what it takes to create an alveary. To make the basic alveary block, which all of the lighting, rain shield, mutator, frame housing, all of these are built from alveary blocks, you need 1 impregnated casing and 8 scented panels. The casing isn't that much of a problem. We've seen how to make those. It's just 8 blocks of wood and a 1/4 bucket of seed oil in a carpenter. The scented panels, on the other hand, are a little bit more difficult. They require 1/2 bucket of honey, some beeswax, some pollen, and some royal jelly. The royal jelly is available from the imperial bee, which is one of the end products of basic forestry breeding. Well, not really an end, but an intermediate level. The pollen comes from industrious bees. Well, by standard. We also have access to the jaded bees, so named because Jadedcat was the queen of all bees. To get industrious bees, you need to breed together diligent and unweary bees, and to get your diligent bees, you need to breed together common and cultivated bees. To get the unweary bees, you breed together the diligent and the cultivated. So, we're going to get into how to make all of that happen. And we're going to talk about the basic how forestry level bee breeding works before we get into how we're going to cheat past it at warp speed. First, I need it to be day. Now, in the interest of speed, I am going to be using one quest reward that I've attained, which is the Oblivion Frame. These are from magic bees, and they cause a bee to finish its breeding cycle instantaneously. They will breed and be done, and die off. You will get your princess and your drones. To get the Oblivion Frame, you use an Essence of Scornful Oblivion on a proven frame. Proven frames cannot be crafted. They have to be purchased from villagers. The Essence of Scornful Oblivion can be created with Wither Skeleton Skulls, Essence of Shallow Grave, which is made with wax that comes from bees and a rotten flesh, Essence of Lost Time, which is made from soulful wax from bees and a clock, and a dragon egg, which you can craft more dragon eggs using draconic chunks, which certain bees can produce out of draconic dust. So bees can provide more dragon eggs for you, which will get you more Oblivion frames. However, starting with the 3 that I received from the quest rewards is entirely to show you this process faster. I won't actually be gaining any real utility out of it. You can do the exact same thing over a longer period of time without using them. Now, let me take a look at what the quest rewards were so that I know that I won't be using anything that everyone doesn't have access to. Modest Meadows Forest, Marshy Tropical Forest. So, first things first, I'm going to take my 5 meadow hive and my 5 forest hives that I got guaranteed. These are going to be the start of my bee production empire. And I'm just going to set them down. And I'm going to grab out my scoop that I lost when I accidentally starved to death. I'm going to go make a scoop, which is a simple recipe. Just requires some sticks and some wool. And maybe I will teach my system how to make me more scoops, because I'm probably going to need them, since I went and lost my goodies. There. Now I'll always be able to get more scoops whenever I want. Now, you use a scoop on a hive. In fact, I'm going to tell it to make me some more because I'm going to need more almost immediately. Just left click to break the hive, and it pops out a couple of bees, sometimes a honeycomb. Some of these bees are going to be ignoble. Now, what this means in default forestry on standard difficulties is that that bee will die off. It is not guaranteed to continue producing a new princess every single time. However, in Agrarian Skies, that is simply not an issue. Even the ignoble princesses will always give you a new princess. Also, there is a small chance every time you run a princess through, you will get an extra princess out of it. So I'm going to dump these bees in here, going to grab up the rest of those hives, and I'm going to show you how to get started creating some common bees. Ooh, looks like I got a special bonus. Whenever you break meadows or forest hives, you have a chance of getting a Valiant Princess, and this one's pristine. Valiant Princesses are used to breed special lines of bees, which can get you the heroic, the sweetened, the energetic and excited. There's a lot of really interesting bees that come out of the Valiant Princesses, including most of the dye bees, which are going to be very important if I want purple, since I'm planning on using dyes as bees as my primary source of completing the purple quest. So how do I turn, for example, some of these meadow princesses and some of these forest princesses into common princesses? Well, I'm going to grab one pristine meadow princess, one pristine forest princess, except I did not get a single pristine forest princess. Look at that. Maybe I have one left over from another time. No, I do. Oh, there we go. One pristine forest princess. I knew I got one as a reward. I'm also going to attain another apiary and one more oblivion frame. Going to set up this apiary. Good. These also finished. This is also a pristine forest princess. And I'm going to need my scanner, the beealyzer, which looks like it was also in my bag when I died. It was. Okay, so I'm going to make myself a new scanner after I get these guys started. The way you breed better bees. If I toss the Meadows Princess with the Meadows Drone in the Oblivion frame, and the Forest Princess with the Forest Drone in with the Oblivion frame, you will see that they go almost instantly. It'll take 55 seconds, I believe, which is 1 bee tick, if I remember correctly. Let me look that up for you. Apologies. A bee tick is, in fact, 550 standard ticks, which is 27.5 seconds. And there you go. You saw the Oblivion frame took 1 damage. My Meadows drones finished breeding. Just that fast. And the Forest drones, ooh, they have the regular ones in there. So again, 27.5 seconds for a generation worth of bees. This is important so that you can speed through the different kinds of bees as fast as possible. And there we are. 3 forest drones and a forest princess. I wanted the extra forest drones before I got started here. So if I combine the Meadows Princess with a forest drone, something a little different is going to happen. And over here, I'll combine the Forest Princess with a Meadows drone. It still says that it is a Meadows Queen, and it still uses the Queen's data for temperature, humidity, produced items, all of that sort of thing. Same with the Forest Queen. However, when it finishes, there is a chance that it will become something else. And if I look up a Meadows Queen in NEI, I can show you what those percentages are. So a Meadows Princess, in a breeding attempt with a forest bee, or a modest bee, or a wintry bee, or a tropical bee, any of the bees that you can find normally, has a 15% chance of becoming a common bee. And every single bee that is produced has that 15% chance. See, I have 2 common drones here and a Meadows Princess. If I take a look at the genetics of all of these, I can see that this common drone is common/forest. This common drone is common/forest. And this Meadows Princess is Meadows Forest. So now I need to try to hope I got a common princess over here, which I did. And if I take a look at this, this is a common, a purebred common princess. Now, to refine this down to a pure common stock princess requires a little bit of knowledge of the way that Mendelian genetics works. That is, some of the original ideas on crossbreeding. This forestry uses a very simple dominant and recessive, or active and inactive model. In forestry genetics, anything on the active side is what is currently being used. This determines the stats of the bee and what it will produce in the bee housing, either your apiary, your alveary, whatever you're using. The inactive side shows you what could show up in future breeding generations. This is there, it's recessive, it's hiding, and it will happen. To determine what pops out, if I were to compare, for example, the common princess with the common drone, well, what comes out is based on a cross-reference of the active and inactive on one of the bees and the active and inactive on a second bee. So if we were to say that the red wool notch represents the common trait and the yellow wool notch represents the forest trait, if I were to breed that common princess with a purebred forest drone, which has both sides forest, then it would end up looking something like this. The princess has common, active, and inactive. The drone has forest, active, and inactive. And I would end up with a common forest or forest common drone, no matter what I did. Guaranteed. This would not be helpful because it would just end up muddying up my species and make things worse. If, however, I were to use the common slash forest drone in place of the purebred forest drone, well, then I have a chance of something great happening. So what's going to end up happening is that if the active gene for common is selected from the drone, then no matter what happens, I end up with a common or a purebred bee. And only when the inactive gene is selected off of the drone do I end up with a common forest bee. Which means that if I put this common, where did it go? Princess with this common forest hybrid back into the apiary, and I go take a nap so that it can be daytime, there is a 50% chance that I will have a purebred bee. Now, imagine, if you will, that this entire process, instead of taking 28 seconds per generation, was going to take you somewhere around the lines of 12 minutes per generation, and that you needed to go through this process once to make common bees, once to turn those common bees into cultivated bees, twice to turn the cultivated bees into noble and diligent bees, and then you need to upgrade the diligent into unweary and the unweary into industrious. You also need to upgrade the noble into majestic and the majestic into imperial. So that is 3, 6, like 9 or 10 different crossbreeds that you need to create. It gets to be a very large time investment. Quite a lot of fun if you enjoy this sort of thing, though. So, we did not get a purebred common princess. We got a forest slash common princess. Out of our drones, we have a common slash cultivated. Whenever common and forest are in the same apiary, there is a 12% chance of a cultivated bee coming out of it. And because our drones were not purebred, we did not get a purebred cultivated bee, which means we have another hybrid, which muddies the water even further. So if you keep running through and you keep selecting for maximum amount of common on each one of these drones in each generation, you can eventually narrow yourself down to having a purebred common princess. I'm going to go through and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you each step along the way. So for this particular step, I'm going to take the forest common and I'm going to take the common forest, and I'm going to put the two together back in there, and I'm going to hope that I get a little lucky. Here we see the results of that generation. Things do not look encouraging. We have a purebred forest princess, a purebred forest drone, and a common forest drone. We have basically lost the strain. This is why the upgraded and better version is so much more fun. So that purebred forest princess is going back in with a purebred meadows drone. The purebred forest drone I can hang on to for later. The common forest hybrid, not very super useful. That may get discarded. We'll see. From that last generation, I received a meadows common hybrid princess and a common forest hybrid drone. So I'm going to toss both of those back in and pray that that comes out in my favor. I've got enough common on drones at this point that if I can just keep the common strain on the princess, I should be able to isolate a purebred common species without too much trouble. In the next generation, I have received a forest meadows hybrid princess, a purebred common drone, which I'm going to hang on to, and a forest common hybrid drone. So I'm going to toss the forest meadows in with a forest common princess, I believe is my best bet, and see what comes out. This has resulted in a common forest princess, a forest drone, and a common meadows drone. I am going to combine the common forest princess with the common meadows drone. This delivered to me a common meadows princess, so not what I was hoping for. I'm going to now combine my common meadows princess with my purebred common drone, giving me a 75% chance at a purebred common princess. Because everything lines up such that if red is common and yellow is meadows, that is my result index. It is only 25% of the time that I will end up with a common meadows. So let's see what we get. Fantastic bit of luck. It appears that I've got a common meadows princess, but I also got a bonus princess, which is purebred common. Unfortunately, I have a common meadows drone and a forest drone out of, let's see, meadows drone, meadows common, forest common. So I no longer have a purebred common drone to go with my purebred common princess. But I do have a common meadows hybrid and a forest common hybrid. And I'll put those through and hope that I end up with some purebred common drones out of this. Because with the purebred common princess, I'm in good shape. Meadows common, purebred forest. Can go over here. I'm going to sort things out. I've created a chest purely for hybrid drones because I'm going to be generating a lot of extra hybrids if I continue using this traditional method, which I am not going to do past this one generation. I just wanted to show you how you're supposed to breed bees in the old school traditional way. And even then, I'm using the Oblivion frame, which is a bit of a cheat that's speeding things along considerably. Well, that's interesting. I received another purebred common princess, as well as a forest meadows drone. That's a little odd, but I will toss my common princess with my common meadows hybrid drone in, and I will hope that my 75% luck gives me a purebred common drone. So the bad news is I have a meadows princess. The good news is both of the drones are common, and one of them is purebred. The other one is cultivated. Fantastic. So now I take my purebred common princess with my purebred common drone, and I have the ability to make more and more and more and more common drones. Then, if I want to upgrade any princess to common, it is a simple matter of taking 10 or so of the drones, putting the princess in and letting it go through 10 life cycles, and then I have another common princess. The problem with all of this, as you can see, is it takes an awful lot of time to get anywhere with traditional bee breeding methods, even when I'm using a frame that allows me to complete a generation in 27.5 seconds maximum. It is just not feasible if I want to have the bees quest done in any reasonable amount of time at all. So I am going to use GenDustry instead. GenDustry completely breaks the mold for bee mods. Now, early on in forestry history, give you a little backstory on bees, the Extra Bees mod came out and gave people the ability to create genetic manipulation machines where they would be able to siphon off, let's say, for example, you wanted the meadow... Whoops, that was the wrong item. You wanted the meadow princess's ability to have a 2 drone fertility for some reason. You could use Extra Bees to take that one trait, remove it from the meadows bee, and then apply it to any bee that you wanted to through the use of the genetic manipulation machines, the splicer, the sequencer, the advanced genetic machines, isolator, replicator, purifier, and all of these were relatively difficult and expensive to make. Most of them required emeralds and nether resources. All of them required diamonds and gold and enhanced circuit boards from forestry. They were not cheap. GenDustry takes this entire theme one step further. To start off with GenDustry, you use industrial apiaries. And I've already taught my system how to make industrial apiaries. To make an industrial apiary, it's 4 glass, some bronze gears from forestry, which use copper and bronze, a sturdy casing, which, as we remember, is 8 bronze, and a bee receptacle, which requires 5 bronze, some glass, some redstone, and a light pressure plate, which you can make either out of gold ingots or aluminum brass, which, if you remember correctly, aluminum brass is made from 3 aluminum and a copper. You can do it in an induction smelter. You can do it in a smeltery. You can also grind it down into powder and combine it that way, then cook it up in any furnace that you like. So, let me show you what these industrial apiaries do and why they are so good. How much that they help with this process. Industrial apiaries, unlike your standard apiary, needs power, and quite a lot of it. It can use up to 100,000 RF. And you can use it, just like your standard apiary, by taking your common queen or drone and tossing it in there and just letting it run. It will require 20 redstone flux per tick under normal conditions, and it will have no effect. It has a 30% production modifier, and according to this, a 20% lifespan modifier. That means it will produce about 3 times as much as a bee in an apiary, but the bee will only last about live about 20% as long. You can change around how it is enabled. You can also add these upgrades. Now, there are multiple useful upgrades available. The production upgrade can increase production by 20% and also energy consumption by 20% each time, and can be installed up to 8 of them at a time. Wanted the common drone in there, not the Meadows Princess. You can see it's working, 45% complete, and you still get your little bee particles. Those can be turned off in the forestry config if they are damaging to your frame rate. So, what other upgrades do we have available? The lifespan upgrade. I believe the lifespan upgrade makes them die faster, but I'm not 100% certain because it says lifespan minus 30%, 33%. I've never had a use for this particular upgrade. I don't find them to be necessary. The territory upgrade will make them cover a much larger area, which will cause them to pollinate flowers and other things in a much larger area. Humidifier upgrade will increase the humidity of the biome. If you remember correctly, in a forest, we are at a 80% humidity biome. So if I needed my bees to be in a more humid environment, I would use the humidifier. The dryer does the same thing in reverse. The heater increases the temperature and the cooler decreases the temperature. I can give it a seal, allowing it to work in the rain. I can give it light, allowing it to work at night. And I can give it an open sky upgrade, allowing it to work inside. Unfortunately, I only get 4 of these upgrades, and I'm going to want to spend at least 1 slot on production, and maybe 1 slot on something else that helps a lot. For example, biome overrides. These will make the biome count as whatever biome the override says. So instead of forest, this would count as the nether. Instead of forest, this would count as a desert or plains or a jungle. Very, very useful for breeding specialized bees. I don't see an icy override, but that's not super necessary. The automation upgrade is one of the best things available at all. You want one of these in just about every apiary that you're going to be using for real production, because it will automatically replace a princess and a drone in the princess and the drone slot. The sieve upgrade is used for tree breeding. We'll get into that when we need to. It will definitely be coming later on. And the genetic stabilizer upgrade is a way to prevent ignoble bees from dying. However, in Agrarian Skies, this is not necessary. So save yourself the upgrade slot and the power. As the industrial apiaries, they're not exactly cheap. They require 20 RF a tick, and if you start cranking out those upgrades, well, you might increase that dramatically to hundreds of RF per tick. So this is pretty cool. It's very helpful. However, it's not even the star of the show. This just allows me to get more stuff out of my bees for cheap. Well, not cheap. You spend a lot of resources creating these industrial apiaries and all of the upgrades. The real star of the program, however, is the mutagen producer and the mutatron. So let's go get those crafted. The mutagen producer requires bronze, power module, mutagen tank, sturdy casing, and bronze gear. So power modules, gold, redstone, piston, and gears. 2 of those. Mutagen tank is made with tin and glass panels. No problem. That should be everything I need for the mutagen producer. I don't have a hopper in there. That's okay. I have one in my bag. And then to use that mutagen, I'm going to need the mutatron, which requires 3 of these bee receptacles, another mutagen tank, another power module, and the genetics processor, which is made with 4 diamonds, 2 redstone, 2 nether quartz, and an ender pearl. And there we are, 1 mutatron. So I'm going to bring these over here, and I'm going to get them on my power. The mutagen producer will create mutagen from various items that can destabilize genetics. Redstone dust, glowstone blocks, redstone blocks, and then uranium or items that are similar to uranium. I do not know if yellorium will work because it is cross-compatible with uranium. Does not appear so. So, what is most likely my best bet is either glowstone or redstone. Well, considering I have only a few thousand glowstone and over 20,000 redstone, I am going to use redstone blocks to produce my mutagen. And that stack barely had any effect on the redstone that I have available, but will have a big effect on the amount of mutagen I have. So, 1 block of redstone produce... Oh, it takes a little bit of time, doesn't it? 1 block of redstone produces 900 millibuckets of mutagen. The block of glowstone would produce 800. And those are the only options in this pack. I need 1 bucket of mutagen per operation. I do not believe the mutagen producer will automatically output to the mutatron, but let's find out. It will. That is clever. So all you need to do is get your mutatron right next to your mutagen producer, and as it produces mutagen, it will get dumped right into the mutatron. Now, to make this work, I'm going to need lab equipment. And this is one of those ones that I'm going to need a lot of. So, if I look up lab equipment... Oh, it's not called lab equipment, is it? Genetics labware. There you go. 16 are made with 1 diamond and 4 glass panes. So, I'm going to teach my recipe how to make me those. As you can see, you're going to burn through a lot of diamonds doing this. However, the results are so incredibly worth it. Make myself a stack. Take that stack with me. Now, let me show you the process of creating a common bee using GenDustry. I'm going to grab... Oh, I wanted a forest princess, but it's just so hard to spot them like this. 1 forest princess and 1 meadows drone. And I'm going to put my forest princess in the top of the mutatron and the meadows drone in the bottom of the mutatron. And I can see that it begins processing. Once it is finished, I receive a common queen. And if I scan that common queen, I see that it is a purebred common queen. This will breed true, despite the fact that it says ignoble, because of Agrarian Skies difficulty, with no need for the genetic stabilizer upgrade. So, there you have it. What took me 20 minutes with jump cuts at 30 seconds per generation, and what was probably 15 generations worth of bees to produce, I could instead do on camera in about 30 seconds. GenDustry is going to be amazing for completing my bee progress. That's going to complete our time with bees today. No quests completed, I don't believe. Maybe I got to finish 1. Bee automation required me to... Oh, I have to craft an industrial apiary by hand, of course. There we go. 1 industrial apiary. When crafted by hand, gets me my reward. Claim the left reward bag. Heart gets me up to 77 lives. And the greater reward bag contains 16 corn seeds. I'll go dump those in the seed chest, and maybe someday I'll have a use for corn. I now have 18. So, I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to bees and a very clear example of why GenDustry is so much better. Thank you very much for joining me. If you have enjoyed this, please like, comment, subscribe. It helps me an awful lot. And come follow me on Twitter. Every now and then I say something interesting. One more thing. The texture pack poll continues. At this very time, the results at the moment are 188 for Sortex, 183 for Faithful. At the beginning of this episode, Faithful was in the lead. Also, I had a very interesting suggestion. I was told that Faithful and Vanilla are quite next to each other, very, very similar, so maybe I should include both of those together. And it occurred to me that, well, Jaded and Sortex are both very similar as well, in that the Jaded Mix Pack uses about half of Sortex textures. So maybe I should take the higher of the two similars and add the lower of the two to them. That would put Faithful and Vanilla quite a bit ahead of Sortex, so I expect people that are fans of Sortex would prefer I did not do this. But if I do take into account the fact that a very large percentage of, and in fact a majority percentage of voters have chosen either Faithful or Vanilla, well, I think that I'm going to have to insist that Sortex achieve a significant majority to be able to be the winning pack. Sorry, folks, if you're a fan of Sortex. See you next time.